Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me as we take a look at your work week forecast for January 15th through the 19th. And weather looks to be quieting down in comparison to last week, where we had 2 to 3 pretty high impact storms. If you go back to not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, when we had the snowstorm, and then we had the two snow to rain high impact events. Nothing like that this week, although we will have a storm that will cause some issues tomorrow with some light snow and enough that we will be a little slippery throughout driving throughout the day tomorrow. But just snow tomorrow, no changeover or anything like that, and some accumulations, but not huge accumulations. I will have a accumulation map for you as we go through our forecast today. So let's start off with the satellite imagery here, and you can see, oh yeah, there's the beginnings of a storm. There's been some snow across a lot of the southeastern United States. Not a huge amount anywhere, but any snow for them down this way is high impact. As a matter of fact, Missouri had the entire county or the entire state was covered in winter storm warnings for this. But again, they only need about an inch of snow to make a winter storm warning because, again, for them, that's a huge impact. But not Missouri. I'm sorry, that's Arkansas. Missouri is north of Arkansas. I do know my states, maybe. Anyway, this system's starting to get going, and it will turn the corner a bit, but it's never really going to tap a lot of Atlantic moisture, and it's a little moisture starved. First time we've had a moisture starved system in a while. You can see the Gulf of Mexico right along the coast here is shut off. We do have some influence of some Pacific moisture, but without being able to tap the Gulf of Mexico, and without being able to really start to tap the Atlantic for moisture, this system ends up being a little bit moisture starved. You can see it on radar a little bit as well as we take a look. You can see we got a lot of light snow, a little bit of moderate snow in a couple of spots as the system gets going, but nothing real strong. And we're not going to, as we look at the upper level, which we'll do a little bit later, we're not going to get the kind of deep diving trough where it really drives moisture northward along with the system. Very late for us, the system is going to start to wrap up and trying to wrap in some Atlantic moisture, but I think that's more of a main thing, really. Although the snow will fall the heaviest towards the second half of the storm, the initial parts of the storm tomorrow, early in the morning, and early and morning for us will be lighter, and then we'll get some more chances of some moderate snow in the afternoon. But again, even then, not real hard, and then the storm will be kind of quickly heading out as it's a quick mover as well. Let's take a look a little bit closer to home, and you can see, yeah, there's a few moderate radar echoes in here, but nothing overly strong. We don't have any thunderstorms associated with this. It's sort of a kind of a run-of-the-mill system. The good thing about this system is we'll be plenty cold, so what falls will be powdery snow, and we will not have to worry about other things with that. If you look at the upper level, this kind of tells a story as well, right? We do have a decent piece of energy way behind that's not really impacting it, but then not a big dip in we have a general trough, but no real sharp shortwave troughs throughout the United States. And we also have fast moving jet stream kind of pushing things out to sea. This will dip a little bit, which is what's going to allow the storm to kind of come up the coast, but not enough to really wrap up a big storm. So the energy just didn't all come together in the right way. This time last week, it looked like this piece of energy might be a little faster, and it wanted to really, and that's what we would have needed, that this would kind of, this piece would come together with this little piece of energy, and that they would have really kind of exploded off the coast and given us a big storm. That's not going to happen. The timing just didn't quite work out between those two short waves. But the overall pattern here still was well predicted. That's usually what happens. The short waves the timing on them is a little hard to predict over a week out, but the overall pattern is usually pretty easy to tell. Even a week out, the models do a pretty good job with that. So let's take a quick look at temperatures. This also tells the story of why we're going to be colder this week. We started off pretty cold this morning. I got down to about 10, 9, or maybe 9 at one point this morning at my house, which, again, haven't seen a lot of single digits this year. We've been relatively mild, but a lot of cold air, particularly across Canada. This is sort of the opposite of what it looked like about 3 weeks ago, and that has driven across the central part of the United States and the Mountain West. With temperatures cold, even by their standards. Montana, yeah, when you're in the minus 20 to minus 30 range, yep, that's cold even in Montana. So that is, we're not going to get these minus 20s and 30s. We're not even probably going to go below zero, but pieces of this are certainly going to push east and will definitely keep us cool and below average for this time of year. An average this time of year is probably upper 20s. We're going to be stuck in upper teens to low 20s for most of the week. Overnight lows, mostly in the single numbers for a lot of the week. So not brutally cold, but definitely below average kind of cold. As we take a look closer to home, the snow, like I said, is going to be light to moderate. And here's what we're kind of generally looking at for snowfall totals. A lot of us see basically a 2 to 3 inch snowfall. probably with 3 to 5 inches. Um, Generally for the higher elevations, I would say the 5 inch amounts are more likely on kind of the western facing slopes or south or slopes that face southwest. As generally the trajectory of the mid level winds is from southwest to northeast. And so that upslope, you get a little bit of an upslope enhancement in some of those areas. If you're on the northeast side of a hill, you may get a little bit less of that, but again, pretty close. This is not going to be one of these storms where some places do really well and get a big boost, and others, I think it's a pretty general 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 in the highest elevations. A little bit of a shadowing effect northwest of Rutland, basically, as we head up kind of along Lake Champlain and to the northwest of that, which is pretty typical for a lot of storms. So yeah, in general, enough. This is enough to cause some issues. We'll talk timing in a minute, but basically, with the timing of the system, and it will be cold enough that salt will not be super effective to kind of turn this to just plain wet roads, unless the road's pretty well traveled. So roads that aren't as well traveled will definitely be snow covered a lot of tomorrow, I think, which will mean that travel is a little tricky. It shouldn't be terrible travel. It'll be just plain snow, and it's colder snow, so it's a little easier to drive on. But you're going to have to slow things down tomorrow, and just be aware that your travel time is going to be longer than it was, and you need to be a little careful when you're out there. But yeah, visibility shouldn't be bad or anything like that, as the snow will not be coming down overly hard at any particular time. Here's the details on that system. Snow begins sometime around 3 to 5 a.m. I think school probably happens tomorrow, especially the front end of the storm is quite light. Early dismissals is a possibility. Although, again, I think school probably happens on a lot of locations, but there probably are a few spots you should sort of be prepared that the kiddos might not be in school tomorrow, but I think most of us will go to school. The snow will be mostly light, occasionally moderate. Snow ends in the afternoon. It's about a 12-hour event, 3 to 5 p.m. Roads will be slick throughout the day, but not treacherous by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a day you can get around, but you got to be careful. And accumulations will be limited by the lack of moisture we talked about earlier associated with the system. Let's take a look at some of the rest of the week here. After that, we basically are dry for the rest of the week. There's another system that's even more in moisture source and a little bit further to our south on Friday that could possibly give us some very light snow or flurries. Right now, I think it's just going to bring us clouds, but we'll have to keep a little bit of an eye on that for Friday. But for now, I think it's basically that's what's going to happen. Temperatures, as you can see, tomorrow's probably the warmest as we get up to about 25 degrees on average, but a lot of low 20s, even some upper teens days, a lot of single numbers overnight. Wednesday and Thursday will be quite breezy on the backside of the system. It does eventually, that piece of that upper level, or that trough that we talked about, kind of that shortwave trough we talked about that's sort of over the western part of the United States, eventually catches up, and it sort of explodes over the North Atlantic. And so we'll be breezy on the backside of that, which will mean certainly if you're going to try to ski on Wednesday and Thursday, good days for skiing, although it will be chilly. So wind chill temperatures these days will probably be in the single numbers, maybe even around zero. So you want to be, especially for the ski areas where temperatures will probably be 10 to 15 for your highs. So you're going to want to bundle up if you ski, and wind holds on those lifts that get windy, that are affected by wind holds, are definitely possible both Wednesday and Thursday. More on Wednesday than Thursday. The winds are a little bit less on Thursday, but generally kind of breezy. And there could be a flurry or two around at high elevations, kind of a lake effect flurry, as some of that makes its way and gets enhanced a little bit by some of the mountains at the tops of the ski area. So if you're skiing, you might see a few flurries around. That's always kind of nice, but nothing appreciable Wednesday or Thursday. And I had to say, we'll have to keep a little bit of an eye on Friday's system. In terms of the highlights, the weather pattern slows down with only one impactful day this week. Below average temperatures for the week, a decent amount of sun today, Wednesday and Thursday. So, get out there and enjoy that. Friday is cloudy because of that storm that's sort of close by. Breezy with wind holds likely Wednesday and Thursday at the ski area. So not everywhere. I don't think it means that tops of mountains will be closed generally, but basically the lifts that are affected by wind, they'll be affected by the wind. And the long term looks less active as well after this week. So we look to going to be in a less active pattern. We do look to warm up after this week as we start to head into next week eventually. So yeah, that's sort of the overall pattern as we go forward. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you haven't subscribed, I would encourage you to do so. I'm sure we'll have another busy period of weather sometime later on in the year or in the winter when I'm going to put out tons of forecasts in a short amount of time. And if you subscribe, you don't have to figure out, hey, has he put out a forecast yet? You don't have to go looking for it all the time. You can just get notifications. So you do that by subscribing, and then you do it by putting your notifications on for that. And if you're interested in getting my forecast emailed to you or getting an extra forecast. I was doing an early weekend forecast on Wednesdays. Those are I do those for my patrons, and I appreciate the way that they help support the channel. So if you're interested in that, you can take a look in the description below. There's a link to my Patreon page. It talks a little bit about what it means to become a patron. So yeah, you can take a look at that. I will be back on Friday for everybody with an updated look at with a look at your weekend forecast, unless for some reason Friday becomes more than it seems like it's going to be now, in which case maybe on Thursday I'd do a forecast, but I think right now there's just not going to be a need to do a forecast for Friday because I think the storm is going to be basically non-impactful at all here. So, okay, so I'll be back Friday morning with a look at your work week forecast.